Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to our online teaching academy, Ekaleva. Cbse Class 12 Economics. Chapter Comparative Development Experiences of India and its Neighbors, Part 2. Let us now see the comparative study of India, China, and Pakistan with regard to the demographic indicators, growth of GDP, and human development. This tabular presentation is about the demographic indicators of all the three countries, India, China, and Pakistan. It is observed from the table that China has the largest population of 1,393 million, followed by India and then Pakistan. As far as the geographical area or the surface area is concerned, China has the largest area and Pakistan has the smallest. The surface area of India is about 1/3 that of China. The per capita land availability in China is high. As China has the largest area, though its population is the highest, its density is the lowest. It is only 148 per square kilometer. The density of population is the population per square kilometer of land area. The annual growth rate of population in China is only 0.46, whereas in India it is 1.03 and Pakistan's is the highest 2.05. The density of population is the lowest in China and it is the highest in India. It is 455 per square kilometer, whereas in Pakistan it is 275 per square kilometer. The fertility rate is the average number of children born to females of childbearing age. The fertility rate is also the lowest in China. It is only 1.7, whereas in Pakistan it is 3.6 and India's is 2.2. China has the lowest fertility rate because China introduced the one-child policy in 1979. This limited the population growth in China. It reduced the growth rate of population to nearly half. The fertility rate in Pakistan is 3.6, the highest compared to the three countries because there is no state policy as such in Pakistan on family planning. India's is 2.2 because India follows family planning policies. However, it is not as strict as how it is followed in China. Though the introduction of one-child policy has reduced the fertility rate in China to 1.7, but still it has its own limitations. After a few decades, China will have more elderly population in proportion to young people. Now, sex ratio is concerned. It is 924 in India, and in China it is 949, and Pakistan it is 943. So China has the highest sex ratio of 949. Sex ratio is the number of females per 1,000 males. The next is the urbanization. Urbanization is the number of persons living in urban areas out of per 100 persons of population. Urbanization is concerned, it is the highest in China, whereas India's is only 34 and Pakistan's is 37. Let us now know the economic growth of all the three countries, India, China, and Pakistan. GDP is used for comparing growth of different countries. For making such international comparison, GDPs of countries involved is converted into the purchasing power parity. Parity means equality. Purchasing power parity is the equality of purchasing power among countries. Purchasing power is the quantity of goods and services one can buy from a unit of money. GDP of different countries is converted into purchasing power parity units of a selected currency, usually US dollars. Let us now compare the GDP of different countries. The growth of GDP in India, Pakistan, and China during the year 1980 to 2017. So this table shows us the annual growth of GDP. India's growth rate of GDP between 1980-1990 was 5.7, whereas China's was 10.3 and Pakistan's was 6.3. The 2015 to 17 data shows that there is increased growth rate of GDP in India from 5.7 to 7.3, whereas the growth rate of China and Pakistan shows a decline from 10.3 to 6.8 in China, and Pakistan's is 6.3 to 5.3. In 1980s, the GDP of Pakistan is ahead of India, whereas in 2015 to 2017, there is a decline. China has outpaced India and Pakistan in the growth rate of GDP in 1980-1990, whereas India has performed better than the other two countries, China and Pakistan, in 2015-2017. Pakistan's GDP growth has declined to 5.3, and this is due to the political instability of the country. The sectoral share of GDP and employment. The growth process leads to a shift in sectoral share in GDP and employment. As growth and development in the economy increases, the percentage share of primary sector in output and employment tends to decrease, while that of secondary and tertiary sectors tend to increase. From this tabular representation, we understand that the sectoral contribution to GDP in India, China, and Pakistan is the highest from the service sector, or we call it as the tertiary sector. In India, it is the highest at 54%, followed by the industrial and agricultural sector at 30% and 16%, respectively. The contribution of service sector to GDP in Pakistan is the highest at 57%, whereas it is 54 and 52 in India and China. In India and Pakistan, the service sector is emerging as a major player of development. However, lesser importance is given to industrial expansion in India and Pakistan compared to China. The contribution of industrial sector is 30 in India and 19 in Pakistan, whereas it is the highest in China at 41%. China has succeeded due to the Great Leap Forward campaign and its reform policy. The contribution of agricultural sector to GDP in China is the lowest at 7%. In terms of employment, that is the distribution of workforce, in India, 43% of the workforce is engaged in agricultural and allied activities, 25% and 32% in industrial and service sector respectively, whereas it is the least in China. In case of Pakistan also, the workforce engaged in agricultural sector is the maximum at 41% as compared to the industry and service sector. The distribution of workforce in China is the highest in service sector at 46% compared to its agricultural and industrial sector at 26 and 28% respectively. Let us now look into the trends in output growth in different sectors between the years 1980 and 2015. The growth rate of agricultural production is the same in India over the 30 years, whereas it has declined in China and Pakistan. It is 3.1 in India, whereas in Pakistan and China, it has decreased from 5.9 to 3.1 in China and from 4 to 1.7 in Pakistan. The contribution of service sector has slightly increased in India from 6.9 to 7.6, whereas in China and Pakistan, it shows a decline from 13.5 to 7.1 and from 6.8 to 5.0 respectively. The rate of growth of industrial sector is the highest in China in 1980-1990 as compared to India and Pakistan. The sectoral rates of growth in 1980-1990 as compared to 2014 to 2018 has declined in all the three countries. However, India's service sector shows an increase from 6.9 to 7.6. Let us now discuss on the selected indicators of human development between 2015 and 2018. Human Development Index indicates quality of life of people and is based on the GDP per capita, health and education indicators. Let us see how India, China and Pakistan have performed in the indicators of Human Development Index. This table shows that China is ahead of India and Pakistan. The value of HDI in China is the highest at 0.758, whereas it is 0.647 in India and 0.560 in Pakistan. Rank is assigned to the three countries based on the Human Development Index. The lower the rank, the better is the performance. Rank 85 is assigned to China, whereas 129 is assigned to India and 152 is to Pakistan. Life expectancy at birth is the highest in China at 76.7, followed by India at 69.4, and then by Pakistan at 67.1. The mean years of schooling, percentage aged 15 and above, is the highest in China at 7.9, whereas India's is 6.5 and Pakistan's is 5.2. The gross national income per capita in terms of purchasing power parity is the highest in China at 16,127, whereas it is 6,829 in India and 5,190 in Pakistan. China has the least percentage of people below poverty line, followed by Pakistan and India. It is 7 in China. India has the maximum percentage of population below poverty line because of overpopulation, and it is 60.4. The infant mortality rate and the maternal mortality rate is lower in China. The lower the rate, better is the performance. It is only 8.5 compared to India 29.9 and Pakistan 57.2. The maternal mortality rate is 27 in China, whereas it is too high in India and Pakistan at 174 per 1 lakh births and 178 per 1 lakh births. The population using at least basic sanitation is the highest in China, whereas it is the same in Pakistan and India at 60. The population using at least basic drinking water is 96% in China, followed by India at 93% and Pakistan at 91%. The percentage of undernourished children is the least in China, whereas India and Pakistan have almost the same at 37.9 and 37.6 respectively. In China, it is 8.1%. Development strategies and appraisal. India, China, and Pakistan had many similarities with respect to development strategies like planning and economic reforms. Reforms were initiated in China in 1978, in Pakistan in 1988, and in India in 1991. China had no compulsion to introduce the reforms as dictated by the World Bank and IMF, whereas India was forced by the World Bank and IMF to initiate reforms to set right its BOP crisis. Let us now assess the achievements of China. In China, the Maoist vision of economic development based on decentralization and self-sufficiency has failed. Reform measures led to rapid growth in China. Land was handed over to individuals for cultivation. This brought about prosperity to a huge number of people. The massive extension of basic health services in rural areas also brought about a lot of changes in China. Through commune system, there was more equitable distribution of food grains. It ensured social security in rural areas. This was done by retaining collective ownership of land and allowing individuals to cultivate lands. China used its market system of economy and succeeded in raising the level of growth along with elevation of poverty. China established SEZ, Special Economic Zones. Economic zones. Such zones were set up to attract foreign investors. Domestic investment was induced through GLF campaign, Great Leap Forward campaign. Let us now assess the performance of Pakistan. In Pakistan, the reform process led to worsening of all the economic indicators. There was delay in implementation of economic reforms. Then there was low FDI inflows, foreign direct investment inflows. The worst of all was the political instability and corruption in Pakistan. Pakistanis depended on remittances and foreign aid. The people of Pakistan worked in the Middle East countries for their earnings. The growth rate of GDP and its sectoral contribution had fallen in Pakistan in the 1990s compared to 1980s. Now let us assess the performance of India. The GDP growth in India showed a substantial rise only after 1991. In other words, after the reform in 1991, the growth of GDP increased. There was massive shift towards privatization. The public sector undertakings were shifted to the private hands. Transformation towards liberalization, and there was greater integration of the domestic economy with the global economies through the element of globalization. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you.